Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. We're never going anywhere in that stupid van, and you know it. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jim.
I'm Eric.
Welcome to issue number 265 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast. Each and every week, we meet here to talk about comic books. We have an action-packed show for you today because we have a club discussion for our penultimate issue of this initial run on The Punisher with issue number 11. Then we are going to dive into the weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth and we talk about the books that we've been reading, whether they're new, whether they're old. We're going to talk about them there. Then we're going to have an awesome news segment in which we cover all of the May previews catalogs. That's Marvel, DC, and the giant independent catalog, collectibles, apparels, and all that fun stuff. Then we're going to jump into Katie's New Zealand Adventures Part 1. She's going to dive into that throughout the next couple weeks, talking about the adventures on her recent trip. And then I'm doing what I think is Part 4 of my C2E2 2023 recap, a con that ended months ago. But here I am still going through it. I think I have one more segment. So that is going to be the entire layout for the show, but we are going to start with The Punisher number 11. So I'll read the synopsis here and then I'll hand it over to our resident Punisher expert, Eric. Here we go. And actually, I'm always reminded that whenever I read the previews world solicit for it, I prefer inside the comic. They have a different one. The cult of assassins known as the Hand made Frank Castle an offer he couldn't refuse, become their High Slayer in exchange for the resurrection of his long-dead wife, Maria. Frank now serves as the Hand's Fist of the Beast, residing in their fortress in Japan, along with Maria. Frank has also gained new supernatural abilities due to his connection to the demonic beast. While the Hand was able to resurrect Maria, they have thus far failed to successfully revive Frank and Maria's two deceased children. A suspicious Maria discovered the children's graves. Captain America, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange, Wolverine, and Black Widow confronted Frank, all of them alarmed by his new powers and recent actions. This comic is done by Jason Aaron, Jesus Saiz, Paul Azaceta, Matt Hollingsworth, and VC's Corey Petit. So let's hand it over to Eric. Let's walk through issue number 11 of The Punisher. What you got?
All right. Well, as you saw in the last issue, he decided he was done with the killing and is ready to go home. But he encountered, the people you just mentioned. Opens up because this issue is very heavy with more exposition on the past relationship with Maria and Frank. Starts up where she's in the firing range and the guy is trying to, come on and say, here, let me show you how to do it. When she, pretty much knows exactly what she's doing because Frank trained her, obviously. She goes home, finds Frank working on the van, which I'm guessing is going to be the battle van as it comes up. Flashes forward to the fight that goes on with the 5 vigilantes. I guess they were all Avengers at one point, weren't they? Yeah. They're working on taking out his ninjas, while Doctor Strange is trying to do an exorcism with the beast. Not quite successful. He goes. Frank escapes from the bonds, and one of my favorite things that he does in this is Wolverine stabs him through the hand, and then Frank just turns it around in a quit hitting yourself moment and stabs Wolverine in the face with his own blades. So I'm just like, yes, a quit hitting yourself moment. Captain America tells him to stand down. He says fine, but he decides he's going home. We then flash forward or flash back again where Maria's talking about how Frank had, he used to go to executions, but there weren't executions, so she wanted to find out where he was going, hired a private investigator. Frank apparently was able to see the tale because, well, let's face it, Frank, and told him, tell her we're having an affair, which she really didn't believe when the detective told him, because the detective was scared to death in only the way that Frank can scare you. And through this, it all goes into where Maria is saying, let's go to the park. I think we know where that goes. Then it goes back to the story where Frank's trying to fly back. And we get to see claymores after Garth Ennis's run. The front toward enemy claymore became very synonymous with the Punisher. And instead, he gets the Doctor Strange conjures claymores that say front toward Frank. He gets blasted. And again, the vigilantes, they try to stop him. Moon Knight, Doctor Strange, they're the only ones who can reach him in the air. And he's basically saying, I'm done. We're not fight. I'm not doing what I've been doing anymore. I'm trying to get to my wife. They don't seem to want to listen. And of course, because let's face it, they're on the side of good. And they're like, we can't just let you leave. It then goes over to the Hand's headquarters where Maria had just discovered the graves of Frank Jr. and I forgot his daughter's name. Anyway, found the graves of her children. And then she's like, I want to see what happened. And she goes and she starts watching the videos of all the stuff that Frank used to do. Not very happy about it. Mostly because he did this all in the name of us and the children. Then again, it flashes back to where Maria is with Frank in that day on the park. And basically tells him that I'm leaving with the kids because she tried to do, she tried to work with Frank to get him and her both on the same page, but hasn't seemed to work at all. Like the line that Anthony opened up with, we're not going anywhere in that van, and you know it. This is where it's building up. She's trying to tell him, yeah, we've got to go. And we see the hitmen, behind the family. He's in the then it goes to the now time where he's in the forest surrounding the hand headquarters, which attacks the 5 heroes after him. Doesn't work out too well for them. And then he finally gets home to see Maria. And when she sees him, obviously she's not really happy to see him because saw everything that was done in the name of Maria and their children. And she shoots him, which I didn't see coming. I mean, I knew she was upset, but yeah. So basically, this is perhaps one of the worst marital fights I've ever seen. And then it ends because we had the flashback of the day in the park where we see Frank reaching towards Maria, but Maria is dead. Which I can see the symbolism in that, because the Maria that he wanted to be with, well, she's seen what he has done in the name of his family, and now it's like she wants nothing to do with them. So it seems now he's gone through most of the physical battles, most of the war. But I think the final issue is probably going to be more of an emotional fight. And last time I've seen Frank, he doesn't fight with emotions very well. His fighting usually involves lead or explosives. So really not a lot of action happening here aside from Frank's scuffle with the with the superheroes, but we got to see where the battle was building up between him and Maria, which yeah, that shot is probably worse than anyone that he's ever had before, and he's been through a lot of stuff. Frankencastle. So I don't know. This is actually probably one of my least favorite issues because it takes a long time just to get through, very little happening. But still, I don't know. I'm still waiting to see what happens in the last issue. I still haven't seen any other Punisher comics come up, so I'm not very hopeful that this will be continued. And I'm hoping that, obviously I might like the Punisher a little, so I'd like to see that they come back with a new run. And if they do, I do kind of want to see him without the powers of the beast, but I don't know. It's just like I said, number 12 is probably going to be more of an emotional battle, which should be interesting. So
Yeah, if it stays on schedule, it looks like it's meant to be out on May 31st, at least at the time of this recording. So we're not too far away from that finale, and then we'll cover it sometime in June. Yeah, this issue had a lot. I loved all the build up in the background, and once he had mentioned, let's go to the park, you just know, like, oh, just like you said, it's, whenever you think of the Punisher, that's pretty much the origin story and the family in the park. That's what you think of. So I was getting prepared to see these Paul as a set flashback moments, throughout the series, really digging their work on the flashback art. But then her building up to that moment of basically just kind of talking about, she wants to have a divorce, and she gets very close to saying so until everyone starts shooting and chaos ensues. But to kind of think back in that moment, just to know that they were having this kind of private conversation, something that I assume is new to the lore. I assume that's a thing that they kind of was able to, add to the overall character origin and stuff by re-examining it. And so I thought that was a very interesting thing for her just to about to say the words, and then the tragedy happens. But yeah, that big reveal at the end with her pulling out the gun, and very curious to see what this version of Maria is going to do in that final issue. Let's throw it over to Kirby. Thoughts on issue number 11 of The Punisher?
Yeah, this was another one I wasn't too big on. I'm kind of sick and tired of the superheroes popping in and jumping down Frank's throat, yet they aren't there when he's fighting Ares and stuff like that. They're not around during any key moments or anything, but anytime he's in between things, they're just jumping him and attacking him. And there's no, I wanted to be able to come into this not having to read something from the past to understand why they're all pissed off at Frank. I would have expected it to be part of this storyline if you're going to make a new style storyline with the Punisher. I like the van part of it because the van is basically his gun. He's not in the military right now, but that's his gun. Tear it down, put it back together, learn it, tear it down, put it back together, understand what it is, know what it is, make it your own. Granted, it's not running, but he could have it running at any given time if he's tore that motor apart that many times. That motor's in pristine condition, so yeah, I'm sure it will fire when he wants it to fire. And then yeah, I'm so sick of Captain America. I don't know why Frank looked up to him so much as a kid. The guy's just got so much attitude every time I read anything with him. He's just always coming down on people and stuff. It's like, you're not perfect in your own way. So it's like there's every one of these characters has their own issues. Why they can't sit there and kind of like talk with Frank, work with Frank, make something happen is just irritating to me. The whole thing with the wife, I mean, yeah, she's got to get it out. She's got to get this done. I mean, this whole run makes you feel like they never belonged together, that their relationship was always turmoil. So it's let her get it out of her system. But looking at it like everything is done for her and the kids, I don't believe that's right, because if they would have never got together, Frank still would have done this stuff on his own, because that's his nature. I mean, I don't think it's all in their name or anything like that. So why she's looking at it in that aspect, it's just that's who you married. You married a psychotic person that just loves what he does and lives in that world and can never leave that world anymore because of what you've seen. So it's like you kind of got to expect that a little bit. But yeah,
when he actually lost his family, he was able to at least have that as an excuse to go do what he's always wanted to do, because he's always sick of everything that happens. And I mean, he probably does love her. It's just that he can't show it in the way that she really wants it.
Yeah, I believe he does love her. I understand all that, but I also understand that the demon inside him kind of controls his aspect of life, and I don't know, it's hard to really say it to make it come out right, but just got to take those good moments and realize if you're with someone like that, you're going to deal with a lot of bad moments, a lot of nightmarish moments. It's not going to be against you, but it's going to be in his head, and he's going to have to get it out. And he's going to do that by going out and doing what he does. But yeah, I'm bummed out, because this is issue 11. We should be at a key moment of something that's going to be big come this next issue, and I'm not feeling that. This feels more like a midway point to me. Like we're not coming up to a big climax here. It's like we got rid of Ares, and half the hand's getting wiped out now. It's like I thought after he was done with Ares, he'd go right at the hand and go at the main key problems. But yeah, I don't see that all happening in one issue coming up. So it'll be interesting what 12 has to offer. I'm looking forward to it, but I just wanted more impact in the end, I guess.
And I'm just hoping they don't try to kill him off and bury the Punisher with all the groups that have been co-opting his symbol. So
that's why I don't understand why what did he do just before this to piss off all the superheroes that are just trying to kill him? They don't it's not like let's help Frank, let's capture Frank. No, let's just kill him. I mean, everybody wants to kill him. It's like none of you did anything better throughout your life. You've done just as much shit.
What's really weird in the Rosenberg run, which is right before this run, he had a major run at a Baron Zemo with Moon Knight at his side. And they had a really fun, exchange. Whereas like, hey, how's your fake moon god? Great. How's your dead family? But they still fought each other or with each other very well. So
no. Yeah, that's why I'm confused a little bit, I guess.
And then as we are leading into a week or so away from this finale, kind of curious on Eric's thoughts, just to kind of up until this point, just as a before we get that final chapter, kind of how this whole ride has been as the big Punisher fan, and seeing all this extra backstory and new things kind of woven into it. Just kind of curious on your thoughts before we get to that final issue.
Well, up to this point, I think it's been an interesting story. It's been able to take Frank into another direction and flesh out his past. But a lot of it, it's like, as much as I like it, it's not the Punisher, because he doesn't use knives, or well, he's used knives, but he doesn't use katanas. He usually doesn't he does hand to hand, but not to the point where he literally explodes people's heads. So it's kind of like a departure, I think, from traditional Punisher. But I mean, then again, if you gave Punisher this kind of power, I mean, there's already the case where the Punisher, soon after Civil War, he wanted to go after bigger people. He went after a lot of supervillains, and then he decided to try to go after the Mandarin and Baron Zemo. And a lot of that, and then he also had the War Machine armor, where he got to go through, he basically got to topple a corrupt government coup. And so, yeah, he's wanted to do bigger targets. And I think, though, this just gave him a means, to that end. But I'm not exactly sure that he wants to keep the beast. And he's probably had enough of it. But I mean, I frankly think that, no, terrible. That was not an intended pun. But I think that he, if he survives this, he's probably just going to continue what he's doing. Hopefully, though, with a lot less superpowers. Because I like his tactical mind and just,
Yeah, I don't need Flying Frank.
Hashtag Flying Frank. All right. Well, we have one more issue to go. We'll talk about that sometime in June after we all get our copies and sit down with it. I'm sure there'll be a message from Eric, saying, have you read it yet? Be like, no, I'm waiting for the day of. But this one I might have to read when I get it. And I usually like to stay fresh and read it at the day we're going to record. But with it being the 12th issue, I'm sure people will be talking about it. So I'll probably put this towards the top of my pile to see how this concludes. All right, so yeah, that will do it for issue number 11 of the Punisher. As a reminder, we'll continue to do future issues, at least for another arc for Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, starting with issue number 6. If you go back to the previous episode, you'll see our discussion on the last issue. And after the Punisher, we've just down to one club pick, but we do have the May catalog previews and that we will talk about, and that's generally where we find some new club discussions. So hopefully we'll find some new books to talk about as a group later on in this episode. But before we get to that, we got to jump over to the weekly reviews. Welcome to the weekly reviews. Let's kick it off with Kirby. What you got for us?
At Edge of Spider-Verse #1. The end of the Spider-Verse is coming. Edge, a noun. 1. Outermost limit of an object. 2. The sharp side of a blade. The leading edge of the Spider-Verse brought you Spider-Gwen and Penny Parker. This final edge will introduce you to some of the most important characters in the future of the Spider-Verse, but it will also slice the final strand of the web. In this issue, Spider-Man Noir, Uranus's new status quo, Spider-X, and more. It's done by Dan Slott, Carla Pacheco, Dustin Weaver, Alex Segarra, Xiao Majado, Martin Kakulu, and Pierre Perez. This was fun. I didn't know what to expect. I picked it up, of course, because of the Howard the Duck cover. And Howard the Duck just happened to be out on Amazon this week. So I watched that last night again. But it starts out with Enter Cravertooth, the Hunter, Spider-Rex story with a world where our spider characters are all prehistoric, and it's our Craven character, perfect for him as a lion type character in here. And it's fun watching those two battle. It's like a lion would have any chance against a T-Rex, but it's fun watching them quabble through here and go through everything. And while it all happens, a friend of Spider-Rex's just happens to get dumped into the tar, and the tar happens to be a giant pool of symbiote, which I don't know how a tar pit that's a symbiote would just sit there. In a prehistoric world, you would think it would constantly be picking off dinosaurs and giving them the ability of the symbiote. But yeah, you see that happen, and they got to battle it out throughout here. Well, he's also dealing with Craven Tooth, which ends up later on becoming Craven Tooth, or Craven Tooth the Coward. But yeah, this was a really fun dino story. I like the way they did the little spider twist throughout here. Seeing a T-Rex swinging with the spider web flying through the air, and that was kind of fun seeing that happening. And then we go into a spider noir style story, and I don't know what the deal is. Every time they play this storyline out with Spider-Man and make him an actual spider, why they have to go so creepy with the character and make the character just seem so evil and stuff. I think they could make it really fun, but this again is a really goofy looking spidered up man character, and with all the limbs and everything, and having to deal with, I get the Osborn feel because of the hairdo of the character that's hunting Spidey down and trying to find out what's going on. And there's a girl that's also kind of caught up in this whole situation. And while they're hunting Spidey down, there's also a guy with a skull mask on that's after him for some reason. And lots of things happen, and I don't want to give away the end of the story, but a new possible spider item appears in the end of this that could be something very interesting in the future. But if they play it off like they have been with the spider characters, like I said, in this format, I don't know where, if it'll be that enjoyable to me. But yeah, I just not into the creepy Spidey. It's I think they could just have so much more fun with that stylized character. But yeah, these are fun. I had not planned them to be those at all. I mean, just by looking at the cover, I thought I was getting regular Spidey stuff. I didn't look into anything about this, read up on it or anything, and I just bought it because of Howard, of course. So, but yeah, I'm glad I did. I'm glad he decided to choose this cover to be on. So otherwise I would have never probably bought this storyline. And now I want to know if they're going to do more of these with different stories for each one, or if they're, I mean, they can't really go much further with these. Well, they can go further with these stories, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean, when they talked about Penny Parker and Spider-Gwen, I'm guessing they must have had some type of Edge of Spider-Verse thing before this.
So yeah, a couple years back, with the original Spider-Verse event that Dan Slott and his creators came up with led into the movie of Into the Spider-Verse, and now with the sequel coming out, they did a batch of these one-shots kind of introducing new Spider-Verse characters in each issue. Then they kind of had their Spider-Verse event happening, and now I think they're doing another round of just some more kind of like one-shots. So the next issue, I assume, is all just kind of new characters each time, and basically just kind of when they appear in their main event, then you can kind of go to these issues to get a little more from them. And
one-shot teasers.
but yeah, they're kind of, I think they all I am a little behind on all the Spider-Man stuff, but I've got some of that stuff. I'm not sure if I have that specific issue, but I think that's what they're doing again, is just kind of doing these little one-shot that are a collective mini series to further expand the Spider-Verse. Cool. All right, and let me just check something here. Is Katie still in the Zoom here? Okay, because I'm not sure if it just went to audio only. So we'll what we're gonna do, if Jim, if you're ready, we will kick it off with you, and then we'll come right back to her if she pops in. I'll check in behind the scenes here. But Jim, let's jump over to you. What do you got?
I have a book that I'm finally catching up on from my reading stack. This is from February. It was the collection of stories that was put out by DC for Black History Month, and it's called DC Power. And it is 9 stories featuring some of the Black superheroes from the DC universe. Variety of artists, writers, and artists, throughout here. We have stories that brought in characters that I was completely unfamiliar with. The first of which was Amazing Man, which was a character from the All-Star Squadron in 1936, and throughout World War II, he was a member of that. So it was interesting to read about that character. There were stories with Black Lightning, Bumblebee, and Queen Nubia of the Amazons. Story with John Stewart keeping as Green Lantern. One that I kind of liked was Own Your Name, which featured Wallace West and Aquaman. I forget his name. I blank on it right now. But the new Aquaman. There was one with Vixen and Batwing, which is kind of a cute story where he's got a crush and trying to ask her out on dates, and while they're doing stuff. Of course, John Ridley there was a story from him with his Batman, I Am Batman, where Jace as Batman was in there. And then Far Sector preview, which was the new Green Lantern character. There was a preview of her story, which was nice because I have not read any of that or seen anything other than that she was coming across in the new books. But my favorite story was called Booyah. And that was a story about Cyborg. And it was just a very touching story that, he's, throughout the story, he's remembering his mother, who actually died before he became Cyborg, and where his catchphrase, Booyah, came from, is that they had a tradition of watching the sitcom together, and that Booyah came from that sitcom, and then she and he used it to buck each other up, cheer each other up when they needed to. So that's why he decided to use that as his superhero kind of catchphrase. So that was a very touching story. But it was like I said, I'm just kind of finally getting my reading stack down to a manageable level, and only have a few things left that haven't been touched yet. But this was one of them that, because it was a much bigger book than the regular weekly issues or monthly issues, took me a while to get to. But the Black History Month from this year, DC Power. Very nice book. Couple of great stories. Couple of really particularly new characters for me too. So glad I got it.
Cool. And before we jump over to Katie, I want to do a quick follow-up on the Spider-Verse stuff. So there's an Edge of Spider-Verse from last year that had 5 issues, Kirby. And then this run is another volume of Edge of the Spider-Verse. So if you're looking for the upcoming issues, there are probably going to be other ones just from last fall. So just if there's any confusion with the numbering, they called it the same thing, basically, just did a new volume. Okay. And then if you wanted to get really caught up, they have a real simple read here of this giant, original Spider-Verse event. So if you missed any little chapter, it's just a real brief read right here. So it's
I'll get right on that.
Yeah. I pre-ordered that like a year ago, and I've read most of that just in single issues when it came out. But there's a couple tie-ins I didn't get, and then that showed up. I'm just like, when am I going to have a chance to read that? But uh, we'll get there.
Just keep it in the car when you drop the wife off, then you can use it there.
Yeah, I'll read. I'll bring it to the theater, and I'll read it during screenings of the movie. I'll just have a little flashlight in the corner. Okay, so let's now take a trip to a galaxy far, far away, and let's check in with our Jedi ambassador, Katie. What do you got for us?
All right, good to be back. I have indeed been traveling throughout the galaxy. This week, I am bringing a whole bunch of Star Wars titles, and we're starting with Star Wars: The Mandalorian, Season 1, issues 1 through 5. If you're counting, that's covering first pilot episode, The Mandalorian, through episode 5. So it was adapted by Rodney Barnes doing the writing. George's Ginty is the penciler, Carl's story is the inker, Rochelle Rosenberg's the color artist, and VC's Joe Caramagna is the letterer. Of course, the series was created by Jon Favreau, and this opening issue was written by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Christopher Yost, and Rick Famuyiwa. Alrighty, so The Mandalorian burst onto our screens at the end of 2019 to incredible success with the titular character, the Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, and all of their friends on their adventures throughout a new galaxy now that the Empire is gone so far and the New Republic is in charge. What kind of life does that lead for a bounty hunter? And these issues are adapting the TV show. There wasn't really any new material added. So if you're hoping for kind of like an extended edition of The Mandalorian, this is not that. Although I would welcome that if they ever do want to, give me that, would buy that. Yeah, this is basically in many cases duplicating shot for shot the TV show onto the page, but I think it highlights the cinematography and the layout planning that the show does for us. I feel like the art is the high point of this, especially the shots that they chose to use. That was my favorite bit. There's a couple cool splash pages where we see Mando having flashbacks to his childhood. I thought that was a way to interpret the visual effect that we saw on screen into comics in a really cool way. So obviously I'm a Mandalorian fan, big Star Wars fan, been talking about this for the better part of 3 years now. Who is this comic for? I would say if you are, a collector, if you're a huge Mandalorian fan and you've got to have everything with Grogu on it, definitely you'll enjoy picking up this comic. There's like a million different variant covers. A lot of them are really pretty, very nice. So they're excellent, cheap ways to get some pretty cool art and keep a hold of those. If you are, a Star Wars fan, whether, you started back in the day in 77 or by watching The Mandalorian, you'd like to get into comics, I think this could be a good way to do it. It's pretty accessible. You probably know the story. And then if you are a comics reader who has opted to not purchase Disney Plus, I don't know how much crossover that would be in that crowd, but I suppose it could happen. If you would like to know what is going on in The Mandalorian and why people like it so much, you would definitely enjoy this comic. It's a great recap. And I suppose if you're short on time and you don't want to binge now 3 seasons of the TV show to catch up, you could grab the trade of this to find out what is going on. I really liked it. Nothing, like I said, it didn't add anything new or groundbreaking, but I thought as adaptations go, it was a pretty good one because, sometimes the adaptations that they just don't, to me, add anything of value. They don't like hit the mark, but this one I thought did. I really liked it. And I can speak very highly for The Mandalorian. These are from season 1. I know that season 2 is in the previews, so I think you should check it out. And that's my review.
I do like the idea that if somebody, Jim raised his hand there, if somebody doesn't have Disney Plus, but picked up the comics. I like the idea of someone in a
Mhm.
conversation about Mandalorian just being like, "Oh, I haven't watched the show. I've just read the comics, like the comics that are adapted after." Like, I like that as
Nice.
an idea. Like,
Yeah.
it's a funny little quirk, and I think somebody, if anybody's listening that does experience that way, or we can use Jim as our test subject and get those issues in his hand. That would just be really interesting to see someone just be like, "Oh no, I just follow the issues of it." So
Yeah, no, that would be cool. And I will say it still keeps a lot of the tone and suspense of the show that makes it so special. But yeah, the trades are all available if you would like to get that. I know issue one's out. I think you can pre-order the second trade, and I'm sure that volume two will follow in the same way. But definitely can recommend both the show and the books. They're pretty fun. Check it out.
Katie, did you read a physical book or a digital book?
Yes, I actually have some physical copies of these. I was going after some of the covers, so I did read the physical ones.
Okay. I was just wondering if you knew if it was also available as a digital. I'll have
Um,
to look into it.
I haven't checked myself, but I'm pretty certain that it would be. I don't see why they wouldn't release it that way.
All right. Yeah, I will look into that. Thank you.
Nice. We'll have fun. Cool.
all right, let's jump over to Eric. What are you bringing to the table here? Oh, he's got a
Hairball.
Oh, he's
Sorry,
got a hairball. Okay.
that's actually the name of the comic. Hairball
Oh,
by Dark Horse Comics. So of course I had to get it because it involves a cat, and I'm a I can't just say I'm a cat person because I'll pet an alligator if it'll let me without biting me. But anyway, this is actually a horror comic written by Matt Kent. Let's see, art and letters are Tyler and Hillary Jenkins. I'm assuming that's maybe a husband and wife duo. I'll have to look into it. But anyway, as it starts out, it's about a girl who gets adopted, and as she goes to her home for the first time, there's a stray kitty out there waiting for her. And it's like, okay, kitty. And they decide to take it in because it shows up just as she's there. It opens up, and we see that this is somewhat of a spicy kitty. It bites, or sorry, weird. It bites her, but when it does, it forms this weird symbol, and these really weird little, I don't know what they are, two worm-like things come out. And throughout the story, it goes over that, it assumes that she has a developmental delay because she doesn't talk much to people, and she only gives out one sentence responses with as few words as possible. And time goes on, you find out that, this kid, it doesn't go into much about her life before she was adopted, but you see that the husband and wife, they really wanted to have a kid, but adopting this child, Anna's her name, it's taking a toll on them because therapy is very expensive and their insurance won't cover it. So as it goes on, a lot of stuff that she talks about in her therapy focuses not on necessarily her, but the fact that she's dealing with this married couple who adopted her, who are constantly fighting, constantly hostile towards her. And as time goes on, you find that obviously we know that the cat was fairly malevolent, but it spews hairballs on stuff, and for some reason these hairballs come to life. So we're not exactly sure what this thing is. I mean, it looks like a kitty, but there are a lot of odd things about it. So time goes on, she continues her therapy sessions, she starts opening up more. And then later you find out that the little worm things that came out of her, they start talking to her, but she's not really aware that they're there. And this cat is just, I don't exactly know what it does, but or what it is, but it puts a hairball in this guy's coffee. He takes a drink, and then we find out in issue 2 that that hairball caused him to have an allergic reaction and ended up giving him a stroke. We also then in issue 2 we saw that the cat was chewing on a wire, so it could start a fire while the guy was stroked out in a room after he had been like left there. We also found out that the hairball that the cat hawked up on was actually on a pile of divorce papers that the husband had actually gotten. Uh-oh. It's here. But so we find that, but you know, time goes on, we see that this cat, it has some type of, you know, it loves Anna, but like I said, it's fairly malevolent, and it scares her so much. Issue 2, she drowns it, but it comes back to life. So I don't know, it just turned it. It's a really weird setup. And one thing I like in this series is that you don't exactly know what's going on. You just know that this is a weird cat from hell that has sentient hairballs, which cause really bad things to happen to anyone who seems to cross this little girl. So I'm looking forward to where it goes from here. It seems a lot different from a lot of other horror comics I read, because you know, it's just nothing's explained. So I like, as long as the mystery's there, I think the reading will stay good, but we'll see. So anyway, if you like stories about cats and killer hairballs, definitely look at Hairball.
So it lives up to the title, you're saying?
Yes. It makes me wonder, is the cat evil, or is it just her hairballs?
All right,
Maybe
we are
cat.
going to jump back around to Kirby. If you're ready for your next pick here, we will jump over to you. What you got?
All right. I checked out Warlock Rebirth again because Howard the Duck was on the cover. Adam Warlock was created to be the perfect human specimen. Since then, Adam has gone on to be a cosmic savior, defending the galaxy from the likes of Thanos, the Universal Church of Truth, and the Magnus. But what will happen when the next evolution of Warlock emerges? Someone who is stronger, faster, and smarter than Adam. Don't miss this untold story of Adam Warlock and the Infinity Watch as Ron Mars and Ron Lim introduce a new character that will forever impact Warlock's legacy. I don't know much about Adam Warlock other than little bits and pieces that I've seen of him in books, but this was a great introduction for someone like me that didn't know anything about him. It starts out with him in a battle with some giants on this planet that he shows up on. They kind of just like, this character just steps on him and crushes him into the ground. And we get to meet, like they say, and you get a nice little origin story in here that gives you the basis of Adam Warlock if you don't know nothing about him. So this is a great start for you if you don't know nothing about the character. It was great for me. We get to meet a character that I've seen before but didn't know much about, Pip the Troll, which popped up in here. Gamora's in this storyline. It was nice learning how much power he has and with his abilities with the Infinity Gauntlet and this, what is it, the Soul Stone, I believe he has stuck to his forehead. And there just so happens that a cocoon appears and he's like trying to figure out what it is. It gets electrified by it, rips open, and we end up meeting our possible new being that's going to try and take over Adam Warlock's position, and we'll find out more in the future as the story unfolds. But it was a nice look at his past, learning about him now, and then seeing this new character come in. But yeah, he's in a very unique little planet that all kinds of fun characters, beasts and stuff that are roaming around, and the beasts talk. So that's always enjoyable. But yeah, it was a good introduction for me into Adam Warlock. I was just gonna get issue 1 because of Howard, but just in case, I pre-ordered 2 and 3. And I'm really glad I did, because I think this is a 5-issue run. I'm definitely gonna finish this one off. So new character for me to enjoy. Well, maybe it's getting replaced. We'll see.
Yeah, I dug that one as well, and I thought, yeah, it did a good job for, even though I've read a lot of Adam Warlock through Thanos stories and Silver Surfer and all that stuff, but yeah, I think it did a really good job, especially for the timing of it with the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 movie out there, bringing Adam Warlock into the MCU after we saw Volume 2. So I think it does a good job for anybody walking into a shop wondering who this character is, and then getting a little introduction with a brand new story. Cool. All right, we are gonna jump back over to Katie. What you got for us next?
All right, my next pick is Star Wars: The Galactic Starcruiser Halcyon Legacy, number 1 through 5. I read this Tuesday evening, and by Thursday evening, I had to update my review for a pretty key reason. Let's jump into the comic, and then we'll talk BTS. All right, so Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser Halcyon Legacy is a tie-in run of comics to the Galactic Starcruiser experience that explores the exciting voyages of the Starcruiser throughout the ages, starting in the era of the High Republic all the way up to the era of the First Order. It's kind of an anthology thing. There's an overarching plot where there is a resistance spy on board, and the bad guys are looking for this spy. And then we have a grandfather and his granddaughter taking a vacation together, and then things go awry, and one of the ship's droids starts telling the passengers stories about the good old days to try and reassure them. Let's see, tech specs. This was written by Ethan Sachs doing the story, Will Slinney doing the art, Rochelle Rosenberg on the colors, and VC's Joe Sabino on the lettering, of course, for our friends at Lucasfilm and Disney. Okay, so we have stories from the High Republic with Buryaga, who's on the cover as well, and the Nihil. We have a story from kind of the late Old Republic and Clone Wars era with Aurra Singh, Zam Wessel, and then Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. And then we have a story from the Empire days with Hondo Ohnaka, who also appears elsewhere in Galaxy's Edge, and Lando Calrissian, and Maz Kanata made a cameo. And then finally, we have a story from it's not really said where it's set, but somewhere between Empire and First Order with Bosk, and he is looking for some prey that are hiding on the Halcyon. And then issue 5, in addition to the Bosk story, also wraps up the overarching plot set in the First Order era. So unusually, I'm going to start with the cons first. I felt like there was a pirate that was supposed to be like the driving villain, and I just thought like he was kind of goofy. Like I did not feel afraid or threatened by this guy at any time. And I think that might be because he was like the decoy villain. Like the real villain we find out later on, he's like talking on the comlink to this pirate guy. But I didn't find the villains particularly threatening. And I felt like on a technical level, the storytelling device of having a droid telling the stories to passengers to like comfort them, like to me, I'm like, it felt a little cliched to me. And also I would not be comforted by some droid telling me stories of past adventures. I'd be like, dude, like, do your job and help us evacuate here, you know? But, you know, we'll accept it as a way to present this anthology story. And I think that is probably all it really needs to be. On a technical level, I thought it could have been smoother, in my opinion. Some positive things. I love seeing a High Republic story. I like Buryaga a lot, but I'm really glad they included the High Republic. That is, you know, as far as I can tell, still going strong. If you are interested in getting into it, like, well worth your time to grab a couple trades. I liked the Anakin and Padme stuff, although I was like, yeah, everybody here on this ship knows that you're married. You are not fooling anyone for 1 second here. So this idea that, oh, we're undercover and I'm escorting her, I'm like, no, everybody can tell that you guys are actually together. Like, this is completely obvious to see through. But I still liked it because even though like they're a super toxic and honestly kind of abusive couple, I still ship them. Yes, I recognize that is toxic. It's not healthy, but what can I say? I will take more Anakin and Padme stories when I can get them. Number 4, let's see.
It sounds like that droid that she was talking about may have taken over her Zoom window, but she'll probably be back within a second. So we'll see what she says here. But yeah, thinking about if droids were telling you a story, maybe if R2D2 was like beeping at you, you know, he could probably tell some really good stories and calm you down a little bit. He's just such a trusted hero. But yeah, some other droids maybe not so much.
Maybe if he could clean up his language. It's so filthy they have to bleep out everything he says.
That's true. He does have a potty mouth and just kind of spewing garbage left and right. But looks like we got our connection back.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay. So yeah, we did. Literally, Zoom is like, your review sucks. Wrap it up. I gotta tell you, I felt that these books, prior to something that happened on Thursday, were not a must read. To me, there were some pros, but there were enough cons that I'm like, okay, this is not one that I'd say you have to go get. If you are interested in reading it, you'd be perfectly fine grabbing a trade or even a digital copy. And I still stand by that in terms of story. And then on Thursday, we get an announcement that Disney is shutting down the Galactic Starcruiser at the end of September this year. It will have been open for about 8 months of time that it's closing.
You cut out a little. You cut out a little bit. So if you can repeat. You cut out a little bit. So if you can just repeat the number of months that it was around.
About 18 is what it's being reported as, but less than 2 years. It opened in early 2022 and it's going to shut down in the tail end of 2023. So already a huge number of Star Wars fans, in fact, most Star Wars fans were not going to be able to experience this anyway because it was incredibly expensive. I don't want to dive too much into the economics of that, but a cabin was $5,000. Even if you split that between, like, say 3 or 4 adults, that's still a lot of money. So that just meant that automatically a lot of people were going to have to be excluded from this, or would, you know, have to take a long time to save up for this. And now most of us are never going to have had the chance to go on it because it's closing so quickly. So if you were trying to, like, save up over the span of, like, say 3 to 5 years, you know, for a big trip, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, you're out of luck, but these comics might be your only way and your best way to experience the Galactic Starcruiser in its original version. So I went from saying, hey, you don't really need to buy this one, to like, hey, if you were at all interested in this, you might actually want to go and pick up these comics. I also was joking that, yeah, now they are going up in value from like $3 to $5. So very interesting that all happened. If you want to ever do a deeper dive on the Disney theme parks and what they're doing with Star Wars, I would love to get into that. obviously this thing got a lot of media coverage because while it was very exclusive, it also did a lot of very cool things technologically. It was cutting edge, an amazing immersive theme park attraction, and the majority of people who went have said they enjoyed it. I am personally sad it's closing. I did want to save up and go for it. And I do recognize that even being in that position is a huge privilege for a company that is very interested in being inclusive and trying to welcome everyone and give everybody the chance to play out their Star Wars story. I personally feel like the optics of a $5,000 starting hotel for a 2-night, 2.5-day experience is not at all inclusive. That's just my opinion. They are closing for, it's been stated, for economic reasons. I hope we'll see that technology reused because a lot of it's really cool, and that they'll do something as well with the Starcruiser. But if you, like me and many others, didn't experience it and would like to, check out these comics. Go grab a trade. I think that's going to be your best bet for value, or check and see if they're on Comixology or Marvel Unlimited. Anyway, that's my review of Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser Halcyon Legacy. That took a weird turn because of real world events. And check it out.
Yeah, all I got to think about is if that, $5,000 cabin, I just think about how many portions you could get on Jakku for that. All right, that's all I had to say on that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I would have loved to have, but I'm like,
Yeah.
My wife and I have gone to like week-long vacations at all-inclusive resorts in like Caribbean places with food, airfare, everything cheaper than a 2-night stay there. Although I do really want to see one of the lightsabers, because I remember when they showed the lightsaber, they have the guy it starts out as a handle, but you're like,
yeah, he was up on a balcony or something. I remember seeing that video of
this is cool. I'm like, yeah, I'd be geeking out if I had that too.
What they need
for sure. Yeah, valid points, and definitely hear you. It's not cheap. It's very expensive.
What they need to do is George Lucas and Steven Spielberg need to collaborate yet again and make a movie about fans going to this now deserted island that has the Starcruiser on, and then you'll just see all the crazy droids that have been just like turned off during the time since they closed down, and then it just turns into a Jurassic Park, but in space. So, all right,
that would be kind of cool, or like a Five Nights at Freddy's type thing.
All right, let's jump back over to Eric. What you got for us?
All right. The next chapter in the Batman White Knight series, Batman White Knight presents Generation Joker. I have loved the White Knight universe. If you haven't kept up on it, basically where it left out was Batman White Knight presents, I believe it was Beyond the White Knight, where it goes into the Batman Beyond story. Where at that point we find out that Harley had twins from Jack Napier while he was still the good Joker, Bryce and Jackie. Bryce is more of the Jack Napier persona. Jackie's more of the Joker persona. And Bruce had escaped. He's been let out of prison finally because Wayne Powers from the Batman Beyond universe in this timeline was weaponizing the GCPD into kind of a totalitarian fascist state. But Bruce managed to get out of it because he was helped by an AI of Jack Napier that Jack Napier had somehow managed to implant into Bruce. So this whole time in the previous one, Bruce was able to talk to Jack Napier. Jack Napier was able to talk to him. Eventually it got to the point where where Jack Napier's consciousness was able to holographically project itself to others, but ended up getting lost in the tumbler. And this is actually where it picks up. We find out that Bryce and Jackie managed to come across the AI of Jack Napier, and he wants to take them on a trip. Now, of course, things are different because Jack Napier existed way before the a long time before the Beyond era, before Harley shot him when he was turning back into the Joker in the first White Knight. So he decides to go on this road trip, or he decides to take his kids on this road trip. Harley finds out about it, obviously, and she wanted to get Bruce to help her. Oh, I probably should have mentioned this. This is a big one. Bruce and Harley, if they're not married, they are definitely living together now. So that was a new twist. Bruce, in order to stay out of prison, is still doing work for the FBI. So he's not able to help with this. So Harley basically goes on a hunt for her kids, ends up running into Neo Joker and what looks to be this universe's Poison Ivy. But whereas before Poison Ivy, she had more of a red and green motif, her leaves all seem to look brown. I don't know if that's because she's aging. Are plants dying because, if you've ever seen Batman Beyond, you know that their world is very technological. So, basically it goes along. Jack Napier's taking his kids, trying to see, this is where I grew up, and somebody got in and vandalized the place. Then he tries to go to the nightclub where, he talked to his mother, and his mother helped him out because, she still had her PhD in psychology or as a psychiatrist. And the nightclub isn't there. But what they do find there is the child of Arnold Wesker, the ventriloquist, who is really upset that Jack Napier's, or the Joker, ended up killing so many of the previous villains. So we leave off there. This is, I think, pretty good. One thing I like about the White Knight universe, it takes a lot of familiar villains, but it gives you some, new stories with them, and also gives you new villains inspired by older villains, like in this case, Neo Joker and the ventriloquist's child. So I've been a big fan of the White Knight since the first issue came out, and yeah, this is, like I said, this just seems to be a really good continuation of it. So if you like the White Knight, this is definitely you'll definitely be pleased with this one.
Cool.
So,
all right. Well, Katie's turn has come up again. So if you are ready, I will just give you the introduction of hello there.
Hello there. And we'll follow up with General Kenobi, because that's what I'm bringing for my final selection for the weekly reviews. We have Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi number 1 through 5. Of course, this was released to hype up the Obi-Wan Kenobi show featuring Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. I know some people didn't like that, but I did enjoy it. Part of that is because I was a kid when the prequels came out, so I am attached to that depiction of Obi-Wan and Anakin quite a bit. And I really liked this comic. This is, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think I liked it the best out of all 3 Star Wars comics I read this week. And they were all, definitely decent in their own ways. So our writer is Christopher Cantwell, artist is Ariel Anadito, colors are by Carlos Lopez, and lettering is by VC's Joe Caramagna, and Phil Noto is doing the main covers. This is kind of split again into 2 sections. We have stories from the past, and then Obi-Wan is an older man in the desert of Tatooine, watching over Luke, kind of recounting his memories. So a sandstorm is rolling in. Obi-Wan can tell it's going to be really bad, and he's going to be stuck in his hut for, a couple days, a good while. And he breaks out his journal and is writing down about some memories and missions he had, and maybe some conflicts or questions he had about the Jedi Code, and just reminiscing as one does. You can definitely feel the weight of his sadness and his isolation in here. I thought that was very well done. For example, this first issue actually tells the story of when Obi-Wan was still a youngling, not even apprenticed yet. And one of his little buddies is, you know, struggling with being a Jedi and not being able to see their family, and they're having these visions and just having a hard time being a kid. I feel like if you were a kid in the Jedi system, like, you know, that would be pretty challenging because you're still learning how to like handle your emotions regularly, and then to be like, oh well, like feel your emotions but like, you know, don't like act on them. Okay, by nature children act on their emotions as part of their development, so I just feel like it would be pretty tough. They would be a pretty stringent school, like they got a lot of rules and whatnot. Anyway, this youngling friend of Obi-Wan's decides that rules or not, they are going to try and get away and try and get to see their family. And Obi-Wan's like, well, you're my friend, so even though this is wrong, I'm not going to let you go alone. And they get on into a little trouble in the lower levels of Coruscant, and they run into some bad guys who, when they discover that they're Jedi, are going to try and ransom them off for a higher fee. And the kids get away, and Obi-Wan is like, well, I'm going back to the temple. And his friend's like, well, then, you know, like, thank you so much for being my friend, but I'm still going to go. You know, I guess I'll never see you again. And then it flashes back to Obi-Wan as an adult, you know, reflecting on that and how he felt about the, you know, different Jedi rules. Yoda makes him, for breaking out of the temple, Yoda makes him sweep the floors and do some chores. So just as young Obi-Wan got to ponder his actions and his friends' decisions in the middle of the night, so too does older Obi-Wan, just this time under very different circumstances. The next issue is an adventure with Obi-Wan as a Padawan. He appears to be a teenager before the Phantom Menace, and he and Qui-Gon are on a mission to a planet that is shrouded in darkness, and they are hunting a werewolf. Or at least to me, it looks like a werewolf. I think in the Star Wars universe, it's technically a Shistavanian who was infected by like some kind of space radiation, but for our purposes, it's a werewolf. This one was really cool. It added a lot of horror and suspense. Qui-Gon is dispensing his wisdom. That sounds pretty cool, but doesn't always make sense until you think about it. And atmospherically, I really enjoyed this. I like the idea of redemption, that like the Shistavanian is saying, hey, like I didn't want to hurt the people. I'm really sorry for what I did. Like, you know, how can I be forgiven? Like, how can I pay my dues back to society? And I thought that was very cool. And you see Obi-Wan grow a little bit as a teenager and grow as a Jedi, so I appreciated that. The next two issues actually cover some Clone Wars era stuff where they are now Obi-Wan is a master and Anakin is a knight, and they pay the nose for internet. I am super frustrated right now. You should see my T-Mobile bill. I'm gonna call them up and complain and be a real Karen. 4 and 5, or 3 and 4 are about the Clone Wars, and then issue 5, Obi-Wan in the present setting of the story on Tatooine, and the conflicts between the locals, the spice traders, and the Sand People, and how that all plays out and how he is involved with that, and who are the real bad guys here. And you kind of get the sense that, well, you know, the Tuskens do bad things, but they are not always the bad guys in this case. And it's a theme that modern Star Wars, this reminded me of book John Jackson Miller. Fantastic. Get your hands on that, listen to it, borrow it from the library. Like, that's one of my must-read Star Wars books from both EU and new novels. Excellent. It deals similarly with Obi-Wan's exile on Tatooine, and this series gave me a lot of that feel with the same amount of weight and gravitas and character, as well as entertainment and, you know, development. I liked that quite a bit. Definitely, this is one where I'd say, hey, having just the biggest tantrum over here. I liked it. If you like Obi-Wan Kenobi, I would say go grab the trade of this. This one was pretty worthwhile. That's my review of Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think you should check it out. And goodbye there.
Anthony, you're muted. Anthony, you're muted.
Well, I'm gonna. The audio audience heard that because the audio is recording. T-Mobile, if you are watching this video, you now have video proof of the cutouts on Katie's end there, and subscribe to us on iTunes to hear it as well. So, all right.
Yeah, T-Mobile, drop us a like.
Now I don't know if my Roger was muted or not, but I did say Roger somewhere in there. So. Okay, anyways,
Roger.
We do have one more weekly review, so let's jump it back to Eric. What do you got to close out this segment?
Right. Well, this has been a series that I have enjoyed. Second Coming. This is a Second Coming Trinity, which is the third volume in the series. This was originally going to be a DC comic, but DC decided we don't want to tick anyone off, so it went to Ahoy Comics. Basically, it revolved around the fact that Jesus came back to help mentor Sunstar, who is kind of like a Superman analog in this storyline. Basically, through the mentoring with Sunstar and Jesus, they convinced God not to do Armageddon, and for a reward, Sunstar, married a human woman. If they weren't able to conceive, they were finally able to have a child together, as a reward for, avoiding Armageddon and that type of stuff. So they had their kid in volume 2, and volume 3 comes back, starts with an interesting story where it has Sunstar and Cranius. Starts out in a courtroom where Cranius is like, basically being brought to justice for, the genocidal crimes that he has committed. Not a very good guy, obviously. But during this, Sunstar is looking back to the high school reunion because they were high school buddies. And they remember that, throughout high school, he was treated very poorly. And, it basically goes over, Cranius has come back to the high school reunion. A lot of people go to catch up on old friends, but then you see him and you realize Cranius never really had friends. And they decide to, even at the reunion, they decide to play a joke on him, because I guess in high school his name was Thunderbone, because while he was lifting weights in high school, he ended up getting a certain biological reaction. So he got called Thunderbone, and they put that over his name tag. And just as he sits down, starts talking with a lady, they start having a good conversation because both of them were depressed. They start feeling better until somebody tells her to look at his name tag, and she's like, I can't believe I almost went out with Thunderbone. And then at that point you realize that's where, like, maybe he could have been good. And Sunstar's looking back at this, and Jesus is still somewhat his mentor. He talks with Jesus, and he works something out where basically instead of going to jail, Cranius is able to go do a deep space mission, which is supposed to be like the first ever probe, and is considered a suicide mission. But he's allowed basically to do it. And it's interesting because in the beginning it starts off how villains always say this ends here, but it never does. But after he's put on the ship, he's actually able to go out into space. He decides to say, this ends here. And finally, he's able to, put his intellect together for the good of man. And it's like, this kind of hit hard because, in high school, I can honestly relate to Cranius. Luckily, I did not become into a homicidal scientist. But then when I really like the second issue, though, because it's funny because this one gets God involved. It starts out where God's in heaven. He's trying to go to a meeting. But in heaven, everybody's there. And it's like, hey, look, it's God. And of course, it's not just humans. Everybody's there. And like, oh, look, it's God. And he's just like, oh, God, the fanboys. And he decides to go to Atheist Village because he's like, these are the only people who are willing to say what they think to me. And he has fun discussion with them. And, after talking to them, he decides to go down to Earth. But before he does, we find out something interesting about Sunstar. And it kind of makes you wonder if it's what Clark Kent does, because Sunstar needs a haircut. And of course, he's impervious to everything. So how does he cut his hair? Turns out he finds some dead planet out in the middle of nowhere, flies around it until it spins around backwards, and then he gets to go back in time until his hair looked good. I'm just like, perfect. Everybody knows anybody who's in the 80s knows where that comes from. And God tells him, knock that off. Because apparently there were a bunch of microscopic worms on there, and he wanted to try to watch them evolve. And he's like, Sunstar, knock it off. Then we find out that if he really wants a haircut, he can go to his planet called Trinity, which lives around a red giant whose red sunlight will be able, weaken him enough so that the residents of this planet can give him a cut. Then God also decides to drop in on Sunstar and his wife, who have decided to go on an art exhibition. And they try to brush him off, but he's like, well, that's fine. I understand. But, my son is babysitting your son, who, kind of died for your sins and made existence keep going. So, of course, he gets to go along, and he goes to see art. And he sees a lot of art, and he's like, what is this? Because at one point he sees a donkey and a bellhop, or not a donkey, a monkey and a bellhop uniform riding a dolphin with a halo. And, of course, he's actually more like, what the F is this? And he talks about how he wanted art to be a way for people to explore their relationship with the world with him. But he sees the stuff that we have now, like the banana duct tape to the wall that's sold for millions. And he's like, oh, this is annoying. But then he has a corn dog and he realizes, hey, humans make great things. So, yeah, that's pretty much where this story leaves off, except Jesus was babysitting the child of Sunstar named Jordan. And he doesn't do a really good job because Jordan decides to jump off the balcony. But it's fine because, he's Sunstar's kid, so he can fly. So that ends well. So I don't know, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Sunstar actually goes to Trinity for his haircut. So I'm wondering what if God has a relationship with the people here at that planet. I don't know where it goes, but but so far these first two issues are very philosophical in nature, wondering, okay, people are evil. Why are they evil? Are the people who made these people be evil themselves? And then there's the other one, what is art? Why do people deal with art? Is art art if you're just making it for making money? So, I don't know, I think that further along, we're going to get some more interesting philosophical questions. And of course, it's going to be done in the most blasphemous way possible, which I love. So, still, if you like that kind of weird offbeat humor and aren't offended easily by having a god question, okay, why are you people doing this, then I think this would be a very good series to pick up.
Is that Mark Russell? I think he's still writing that. Is that correct? So I think he did the initial stuff. I wasn't sure if
I would hope so. It's got his Mark Russell's still doing the story.
cool.
I mean, because I would have to say this is a series that if another writer came on, you would notice it, because Mark Russell has been really good, bringing God and everyone in with Sunstar or Superman, however you want to look at it, paying tribute to Superman, the Superman lore, but staying aside from it. So I don't think you can bring another author in, because this is kind of his world. And I hope he still keeps making them. So
Yeah, and I've mentioned it before. Anytime Mark Russell, jumps into the topics here, is that he did an awesome run with the Flintstones over at DC Comics. Those are just so good. So cool. All right, well, that is going to do it for the weekly review segment, but we have another segment, and that is the news. All right, this is going to be our previews preview to catch up within the order deadline. We're going to do all of them, Marvel, DC, and the Giant Catalog. We're going to go back and forth. I will kick it off here and talk about Classified, Fallen Fred #1 over at Marvel Comics. I think it's since been revealed, since this was printed. If people avoid those kind of online news sources and such, I'm not going to talk about what it is. All I'll say, and it could be about 3 or 4 different characters, but it's one of a character that's very near and dear to my heart that apparently is going to be the Fallen Friend. So Fallen Friend #1, it's a mystery one-shot from Marvel Comics. I am excited to get it, even if one of my characters may not be holding off too well in it. All right, let's jump over to Kirby, Marvel.
Skip me. I didn't realize we were doing previews. I was dealing with Shelly for a minute there. So. I'll follow you up.
Okay, yep. We'll jump over to Katie. What you got?
All right, I am looking at the Treasury edition of Star Wars Darth Vader Black, White, and Red. That looked really cool. I know the Black, White, and Red series has gotten a lot of positive reviews, so I'm glad to pick up the Treasury edition.
Yeah, if it's the same kind of Treasury editions Marvel's been doing over the last couple of years, those books are so gorgeous. I love the binding and the paper. They're awesome collections.
Cool.
All right, we have Jim. Anything from Marvel?
I have one pick from the Marvel catalog, and that is the Marvel Age #1000. A big whatever, I forgot what they said, how many pages it was, but
96 pages.
There you go. 96
Almost
pages,
$1 a
collecting all
page.
kinds of stories.
Yeah, that's on my list as well, because Dan Slott and Michael Allred and Laura Allred reunite for a story. They did the Silver Surfer run that I'm so fond of, and this is the first time they've done something creative, and it looks like they're dealing with Captain Marvel. I'm not sure which version of Captain Marvel, but I don't care. It's Dan Slott and Michael Allred plus a whole bunch of awesome creators. So yeah, that's on my list as well. Jump over to Eric.
Nothing really with Marvel that has caught my eye that's coming up, really. So.
All right. Jumping over to, let's just go to Kirby in case I take one of his. So Kirby, if you're ready, and then you'll have another one pretty quick here, just so you know.
All right. Blade #1. Marvel's slickest vampire hunter returns in a brand new ongoing by Brian Hill and Elena Casagrande. True evil is patient, and a dark ancient power has been simmering quietly for centuries. And when Blade himself is the one to unknowingly unleash it, Marvel's entire supernatural underworld will come out of hiding to demand he handle it. or pay a pound of flesh for his mistakes. Bloodbath, blackmail, and Blade. You won't want to miss this explosive first issue of this new volume. I was so happy to see this come out since they had the Daughter of Blade come out. I was afraid they weren't gonna into a Blade run, so that's cool.
Cool. Starting the new round. I'm going to kick it off with a rare one for me, Moon Knight, City of the Dead. It's a kickoff of a miniseries. The thing that attracted me to this was hearing the news about the new Scarlet Scarab character that's going to be introduced. That's going to kind of follow the character we saw in the Moon Knight Disney Plus show, the character that it was of Layla from the show. And yeah, so I'm excited. There was a version of the Scarlet Scarab in the comics, I think, decades ago. But what the Moon Knight TV show did was something different, and now they're kind of going to usher that idea of a character into the Marvel Comics. So I'm definitely going to be on board for this miniseries of Moon Knight, City of the Dead. Back to Kirby.
Now, what was your first pick there, Anthony? Do you?
Good question. The first one I said was something. The Secret or the Fallen Friend #1, the classic.
Right. Well, I got from Marvel Now, .1, all new Marvel Now, .1, #1 Facsimile Edition. Kamala Khan makes her full debut as Miss Marvel to help usher in a landmark era for Marvel Comics. See the 21st century's greatest superhero sensation in action for the first time against the menace of the Inventor. And fresh chapters begin for a host of other iconic characters as well. Loki embarks on a mission for Asgard. The Silver Surfer and Dawn experience the cosmic rays of Nauticus. A Kree pursuer and her special forces team prepare to invade the Earth. The Black Widow takes on a deadly assignment in Russia. And can Avengers buddy duo Cannonball and Sunspot keep the Hulk's power out of AIM's hands? It's one of the all-time great Marvel comic books, boldly represented in its original form, ads and all. I'm stuck on this because, of course, we have Michael already sticking his hands in this one, so I'm checking it out because of that.
Yeah, so
one Marvel 1000 also, so if there is enough doing that, I'm good with it being a club pick too.
well, we can usher that in. It's a more pricey book, but we do have 3 people that are doing it. So if anybody else wanted to join in, but it is 96 pages, so it's almost $1 per page. And to follow up on that, the Marvel .1 you just talked about. So yeah, that's almost 10 years ago that showed up, and that was where it has an awesome short story with Silver Surfer and Dawn Greenwood. That was the first time we saw that version of those characters before they did their #1 issue. So that's an awesome facsimile that's going to be offered again. So, all right, jump over to Katie.
Sure. So my last pick for Marvel outside of things we do for the club is Star Wars Return of the Jedi Max Rebo. I think a lot of these Return of the Jedi specials look really good, so I'm also going to keep my eye out for a collected volume of them. But this month they are featuring a story by Max Rebo, and I think that looks pretty cool.
Actually, I found a Marvel title that I did pick up on. Strange Academy Miles Morales. It's just a one-shot. I'd like to be able to read the story, but the previews here, it says look for more information on this title in future issues of Marvel previews. But I'm assuming, now this might just be some weird fan theory here, I'm assuming Miles Morales gets mixed up with the Strange Academy and they have to solve something. Now, like I said, way out there, but
yeah, that's
Miles
quite a leap.
Morales, Strange Academy. What more could you want?
Yeah, and I think with some of the stuff with July 4th, some of these books are coming out and they kind of have some advanced solicits and information, and it's mostly a problem for anybody ordering comic books, like stores and stuff. But yeah, so I don't think that one is, unless I missed it. I don't know if that's in the printed catalog, but I'll look forward to that one as well because Strange Academy is great.
Well, I usually scroll through the Midtown Comics previews, so that's
Yeah,
where
so
I'm
like
getting
sometimes
most
the online stuff might have stuff that didn't make the print, and I think that's what it is, unless I completely missed it. But the last one that I have on my Marvel list here, diving into Marvel Studios' Ms. Marvel, the Art of the Series hardcover. I talked high praise about the WandaVision one, which is my favorite thing out of the MCU, and then Ms. Marvel's my next favorite thing out of the MCU. So I'm definitely grabbing another one of these. I have the pre-order, is hopefully coming out soon, of the Art of the Series for the Werewolf by Night, the special presentation they did on Disney Plus last year. So yeah, I spent 10 years of the MCU saying I'm not buying these art books, and then now I've bought 3 of them within a year's time because they're doing some of my favorite stuff. If they do a She-Hulk one, I'll probably have to buy that too. Knowing Ms. Marvel came out almost a year ago, I'm expecting the Ms. or the a She-Hulk one to hopefully in summer in a new solicit. But yeah, those books are great if you just love the behind the scenes stuff, and they're well bound and all that. So that is it for my Marvel stuff. So Kirby, if you have anything remaining for Marvel, you can finish us up. You're good. And then we will and I don't know if you're good to start with DC or you're good. Okay. So we'll have, since I just talked, we'll have you start off DC then. When you're ready.
Let's go to the next person because my battery's dying and I'm trying to get stuff plugged together. So
Yeah, I thought maybe that wasp that showed, Janet Van Dyne was over at Eric's house, but now she's kind of flown over to Kirby. But
flew through the cable.
well, we've seen those Ant-Man movies. They're capable of anything. So let's jump over to Katie if you have anything to kick us off with DC.
Sure. I actually don't have anything new for DC. I'm open to club picks. Some cool things that it looks like they're doing. We have a big event going on about night terrors. We have a new issue from the Batman White Knight Presents Generations. This one's going to be focusing on the Joker. Of course, we have reprints of classic stories like Superman Red Son. We have all your ongoing issues with your favorite heroes. We have a 2 new books for younger readers. We have a Wonder Woman story that looks like it's for kids, the grade school readers, and then a Superman story that looks like it's for middle school and early teenagers. So check out those imprints. Those are full-length graphic novels, and I've heard they get pretty good reviews. And then, of course, we have our super fun issues like Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes. And then trades of series from the past couple of years like Batman the Audio Adventures. And that's my quick breakdown of what's going on in DC. Like I said, I'd be totally open to some more club picks from our friends over at the Distinguished Competition.
Excellently said. Now let's see if Jim has any selections from DC. How's it looking over there?
Night Terrors, I got them all. They're all on my list. I'm not even going to break down there's like a dozen of them right now. There's going to be another dozen or so in August.
All 300
they're all coming through. They're all coming here. Yeah.
Cool.
Basically, every title is going to have a Night Terrors tie-in.
Sounds good. Eric, anything from DC?
Nope, nothing that they put out lately aside from the White Knight has really, caught my interest at all. So,
all right. I'm not sure if Kirby's ready because the one pick that I have from DC is probably going to be his. So you can go ahead and get your pick in.
Well, the only pick I have is Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder #1.
That's it.
I'll take all these Black, White, and Red ones
so
they put up. Done by Chip Zdarsky, Leah Williams, Paul Scheer, and Nick Giovanetti. Art by Kevin McGuire and Natasha Futos and Tom Riley. The bloody brilliance of 2020's Harvey-nominated Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Red deserved an encore, this time in print periodical. In this all-new mini-series, 18 short tales of Gotham's most unpredictable anti-hero unspool in black, white, and red ink, because she's never seen the world in just black and white. In this issue, comedic legends, they made us say that, Chip Zdarsky and Kevin McGuire team up to send Harley and Ivy deep into the heart of the Fortress of Solitude. Leah Williams and Natasha Bustos reveal Harley's teenage past as a high-flying gymnast with vengeance on her mind. And actor Paul Scheer joins co-writer Nick Giovanetti and artist Tom Riley to send former Joker sidekicks Harley and Gagsworthy on a heist that's worth the risk. But can the pair walk out on their vendetta in 30 seconds flat when they feel the heart around the corner?
Yeah, if anybody like doesn't follow a lot of comics and doesn't want to get bogged down by like continuity and figuring out chapters and volumes and editions and all that stuff, all of these black, white, and red and specific colors from like Wonder Woman, the Batman stuff, Harley Quinn had a couple, more stuff over at Marvel, and they just been doing, and it's all just like individual short stories, and each issue just has a whole new collection of them. Darth Vader stuff, they're so good, and I think they're the perfect read for anybody who doesn't want to be weighed down by that continuity. I highly recommend every single one that's come out. So. And I think I've pitched it to Marvel on Twitter. They never, I wanted them to at least steal my idea, because I think I said we should get the black, white, and duck. I think I said for Howard the Duck. Yeah, or quack, white, and duck. I think that's what I said. So yeah, Marvel, if you're listening, get that going. Just put me in a story, and you can have the idea. Okay. So yeah, that is it. That was my pick for TC. That was his pick. Does anybody, because I've lost what's happening here, anybody else have anything for DC?
I got a couple more.
Okay, why don't you close us out then?
Well, first one I'm going to go with after that is World's Finest, Teen Titans #1. This is a new series going back to the origins of the Teen Titans, and it's kind of like following up like the World's Finest Batman and Superman is now, where they're going back in their history a little bit. So, they're not in the current continuity, but they're going back into the past. And that's what this is going to be with the Teen Titans. It's going back to the original Titans with Donna Troy, Wonder Girl, Bumblebee, Wally West, not Wallace West, Wally West, Kid Flash, and, Speedy. All of them are going to be there. So that's my first one beyond also Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder. I'm also going in for that. And then Tales of the Titans #1, another series wherein the Titans are going to become the premier team for DC, as the Justice League will still not be around for a while. I don't know if they have specific plans to bring the Justice League back at all, but the major team in the DC universe is going to be the Titans. And I don't know who else has still got anything out there, but I have one last story. Well, Generation Joker, yes, of course, that one. Oh, here we go. I have to find Batman Wayne Family Adventures Volume 1. This is a webtoon that I did not ever read, so I would love to get a hold of this because it sounds just like something that is so much fun. A collection of, where did it say? The first 25 episodes of Webtoon's Eisner-nominated series, optimized for a brand new reading experience in print.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna kick off the giant previews catalog, jumping into any of the independent stuff, merchandise, apparel, collectibles, and such. The first one on my list here is from Image Comics, Big Game #1 of 5 from Mark Miller and the creative team of Pepe Larraz. And it's all this big crossover thing that Mark Miller has been doing. He's been doing a lot of his own creative properties and all that stuff throughout the decades, and now for the first time he's going to start playing around with that stuff, and it looks like he is going to do some Kick-Ass, Kingsman, Nemesis, and Magic Order, and all of the Miller World franchises in one special event. Yeah, this is this is going to be awesome, I think. And I don't know how it's going to read for anybody who hasn't read everything, or maybe somebody who's only read a little bit of it. But I've got it all, so I'm down for it. All right, Kirby.
Live on video next week, I'm getting a Brazilian Wax. No, Brazilian Wax #1 from Stone Church Press. And I will be also jumping on Big Game. I don't know if anybody else is.
We've got two for Big Game.
Basically because of the blank cover, so I don't know if I'll keep going on it or not, but I want to at least know what the story's about. There are comics, then there are Brazilian underground comics, a first of its kind anthology gathering works by several of Brazil's most dynamic contemporary cartoonists. Brazilian Wax is an adults-only trip to the core of the country's vital underground scene, featuring stories and art by Doug Firmino, Fabio Vermelho, Vincius Lobo, Donadora, Roberta Rose, Araim Sertado, Rafael Campos Roca, João Pinheiro, and Pedro de Apremont are translated for English-speaking readers, unlike me. Brazilian Wax delivers a many-flavored cocktail representing the singular richness of a comics underground, a world away from anything you've seen before. Manda bala. I just want to see what they have to offer. I like anything underground related.
Cool. Katie, anything from the indies?
Sure. So I think it's boom. We have more Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer. This miniseries is going to focus on Thessaly, who has now grown up and has become the last. Well, I guess she would be the. I don't understand Buffy continuity, but she's the new Slayer. If you've been following along, we've been reading this kind of post-apocalyptic Buffy series for a couple runs. It's been a lot of fun for me. It's been a sleeper hit that I read mostly for the club and ended up really liking. So I think we should read as a club pick, or those of us who are, interested in reading it. But I'm definitely excited to get Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer.
I want to make a quick correction. You might be in the current June catalogs, because I know those digitals are out. Because I think that's part of the June for August. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, well then, when it comes to June, I think we should read that.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that announcement. But yeah, because we're doing this kind of later than we normally would. But yeah, so just so we know going forward. But jump over to Jim.
I'm cutting way back on it, the big catalog, because I've got so many titles coming from DC. But I am going for this one from Dynamite, Disney Gargoyles Dark Ages. I've been enjoying the Disney Gargoyles title, so this is going back to their history before their castle was torn down and brought to New York. It just basically that's what it is. The history of the Gargoyles begins here.
Cool. Eric, your audio, please. Don't pull on me here. So,
my apologies. First one, bring it up from Blood Moon Comics, Tox, Toxx. In a it's from Eric Palicki, writer, artist, art by Evan Carruthers. In a dystopian wasteland where humanity has long since been sterilized by radiation, a woman miraculously becomes pregnant and must find a way to stay alive as multiple groups vie for control of her and her unborn child's future. It seems to look like a very Fallout type series, and I love post-apocalyptic stories, so interested to see this one.
Cool. I'm going to jump the gun on a couple people because I think other people will have this here, but I'm talking about the unbelievable, unfortunately, mostly unreadable, and nearly unpublishable. Oh, damn it. Take two. I'm talking about the unbelievable, unfortunately, mostly unreadable, and nearly unpublishable Untold Tales of I Hate Fairyland. It's a 5-issue miniseries. Scotty Young did this through his free Substack, and they basically just gave it his characters to a bunch of awesome cartoonists. They did a bunch of short stories. It was digital only. I'm excited to see this now in print for the first time. So a whole bunch of creators. That is a miniseries premiere in the I Hate Fairyland world. Kirby.
Yeah, I will be getting cover B of that. That's beep, 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 Fairyland. And another one that might end up being a club pick, Berserker, Poetry of Madness, #1 one-shot by Boom Studios. A sea of gore and devastation awaits as B, through a chance encounter, safeguards the advanced and ancient realm of Atlantis as its unstoppable protector. But a sickly king serves as a symbol for the rot inside. As the security and bliss created through B's violence is shallow, the cracks created by a secret cult might spell a monstrous end for the legendary city. Renowned filmmaker and record-shattering comic creator Keanu Reeves joins acclaimed writer and artist Steve Skrosh for a one-shot special that fans of Lovecraftian horror would be mad to miss. And we're getting a little fable-y with Berserker, which might be even scary, but I'll give it a shot.
That one is on my list as well, as we talked about the 12-issue series. So that's 2 people. If other people are getting it, we can do that one shot as a club discussion as well. All right, let's jump over to Katie.
I'd also be open to another run on Berserker. I really liked that a lot. And then I think aside from any club picks we might do that, I'll jump in on, that's actually it for me on the big catalog. I've spent all my money.
All right, Jim.
My last one from the big catalog is Her Evil from Image Comics. It's a 6-issue run, story by Mirka Andolfo, and art by Laura Braga. And the summary, there is no escaping the mewing evil. Rita loves her daughter Deb, but a dark evil from her past threatens the lives of anyone who gets too close to it. Can the bond between the 2 women overcome a life built on blood and lies? And what secret is lurking in the Morando family's apartment? Written by award-winning Mirka Andolfo and illustrated by fan favorite Laura Braga. Her Evil stands out in a story about the relationship between a mother who gave everything for her daughter and a daughter who needs to figure out her role in a world that she's about to doom.
Cool. Eric?
Yeah, I'm also getting that Berserker one shot and I Hate Fairyland unrepeatable, apparently. So definitely be up for those. Next from Image Comics, Scrapper. It's about a dog, so of course I had to pick it up. Miniseries premiere game design genius Cliff Basinski, who's done Gears of War and Fortnite, makes his comic debut with critically acclaimed writer Alex DeCampi, who I guess did Dracula, Mother Fluffer, Fairyland censoring there, and Parasocial, and fan favorite artist Sandy Jarrell, Bombshells and Links. Blade Runner style action mixes with big emotions as stray dog Scrapper and his buddy Tank fight for justice against the totalitarian forces of a post-apocalyptic domed city. But when the fight comes to his home, Scrapper will face losing what's most important to him and gain a terrifying truth in the process. Thankfully, it says, "Don't worry, Mom, the dog doesn't die." So we know it. So we know that much. I mean, I don't want to watch a movie if I know the dog dies, or read a book if the dog's going to die. So.
All right, I talked about it last week with the free comic book day preview, but Jeff Lemire's oversized miniseries Fish Flies #1 of 6. It's going to be a new tale of a small town surrealist horror in this extra special length debut issue. I'm definitely down for that. So that is Fish Flies #1. Kirby?
Cover of Darkness Revelations #1 one-shot by Source Point Press. Legendary artist Rags Morales joins the Cover of Darkness universe. Uncover the secret origins of the first Viking werewolf. illustrated by Source Point Press, EIC, Joshua Werner. Classic horror meets Greek mythology in this anthology, collecting 3 gruesome tales featuring the twisted, reimagined beginnings of the Minotaur, Medusa, and werewolves. The other cover of Darkness one-shots were excellent, so I expect the same from this.
All right. And then, so Katie is done. Jim is done. Eric?
One last one. Power Rangers Unlimited Hyperforce #1. Celebrate the Rangers' 30th anniversary as prolific Power Rangers storyteller Melissa Flores, an acclaimed writer, media personality, and voice of Hyperforce Pink Ranger in the Hyperforce RPG, Megan Cameronera, who also does Radiant Pink, bring the fan favorite Hyperforce Rangers to the screen, to the page for their first dedicated full-length story since their more phenomenal first season. Mistress Vile, formerly known as Rita Repulsa, shut up, cat, and Dark Spectre have invaded the Morphin Grid, but it will take far more than just the mighty Morphin and Omega Rangers to stop them. As the Dark Contagion spreads and puts the Rangers in their most vulnerable state yet, the Hyperforce Rangers will have to scour the multiverse for as many unexpected allies as they can while they're pushed to their limits. Well, that was quite the description. I really wanted to see this because Power Rangers Hyperforce, it was actually a series where it was people playing an RPG game, and a lot of people have been divided over, is this canon, is this not? They pulled a lot of old actors, like even Tommy himself, in to be in it. So for a lot of Power Rangers fan, they're finally like, hey, look, somebody's treating it as action, it actually happened. So I know I might be one of the few Power Rangers fans here, but this is, for the fandom, it's somewhat of a big deal. And that's pretty much it for my previews.
All right. The next thing, I'm going to tease half of it in case nobody saw this in the catalog, but there's a new Stranger Things crossover. 11, Max, Dustin, Mike, Will, and Lucas are all looking forward to a non-threatening, fun-filled trip to New York City. With the gang hundreds of miles from Hawkins, they're sure to catch a break this time. That is, until they encounter a threat both bizarre and familiar, and some allies that are just bizarre. This summer, the kids from Hawkins meets the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles, Stranger Things, crossover, I am in. Kirby?
Yeah, I was debating on that one. I might jump in on it. We'll see. We got Hack Slash for Seance Room #1 one-shot by Source Point Press. I'm sure Damon would jump on this one if he was around. Casey Hack and Vlad guest star in this issue, where Harry puts his true and tried style of mental torment up against Cassie's good old-fashioned cut off heads first and ask questions later style. The world of horror will never be the same. Perhaps even Casey and Vlad will come out of the seance room changed.
All right. And then I think everybody else was done. So just
I do have
Jim?
one more.
Yes.
Alice Never After from Boom Studios. I was looking at my list online rather than the catalog, and I remembered that I did have that one selected. This is a new twists and turns on the darkest corners of Dan Panosian's Wonderland. So it's written by Dan Panosian, illustrated by Giorgio Spoleto and Dan Panosian, with covers by Dan Panosian, Jenny Frizen, In-Hyuk Lee, and a few others to be determined. Alice finally got her wish. Wonderland has become her new home, but with her abuser's avatar with the uncanny grin turning the mad residents of a moonstruck world against her, she's clawing for little rationality amongst the chaos.
All right, over at Keen Spot Entertainment, I'm excited for Rebel Girls #1. This is done by Danny Harrell and Robert Ahmed. We've got cursed with the power to resurrect the dead through music. 3 girls from the rural Alabama set out to tour dive bars, basements, and county fairs throughout the South. If making it as an all-girl punk band wasn't difficult enough, these cursed souls are pursued by a ghoul disguised as a record executive who has been tasked with using them to resurrect enough of the dead to overthrow the living. Despite the forces of hell patiently awaiting its time to rise, these riot girls are intent to prove that they're no sellouts and that they can make their mark on their own. Will it be revolution, girl style, or Armageddon? There's a whole selection of covers featuring a former guest on this very podcast, Troy Dungara. But yep, this is Rebel Girls #1. I'll be getting that one.
Yeah,
Kirby?
so will I. All right, we got Under a Blood Red Moon #1 by Dren Productions. The Earth has been invaded by a race of aliens who are only interested in finding new slaves for their empire. This creates a problem for some of the other species living here, vampires and werewolves. The more humans they take off planet, the less food they have. Humanity's fate is locked in between these two warring factions whose only desire is to retrieve their food source. So one way or the other, the human race is screwed. Vampires versus werewolves versus aliens. Who will claim the human race as their own? Whoever wins, we lose.
All right. I had a bunch of other stuff, but I'm going to close it down on Crashdown #1 of 3. This is from Whatnot Publishing. Equal parts Lost and Alien with a Lovecraftian twist, Crashdown delivers a dark vision of our world's final days. The Earth is dead. Humanity's last hope is the distant planet of Empyrean and the ship full of colonists ready to repopulate our civilization. But what happens when their new home doesn't want them there and it fights back? Typically, this ain't something I would be drawn to, except for the actual drawn art, because the artist is Ben Templesmith of 30 Nights, 30 Days of, why did I just forget? 30 Days of Night? Yeah. But yeah, Ben Templesmith, he's awesome. So I saw that. It's a 3-issue miniseries priced at $3.99. So yeah, I'm definitely getting Crashdown #1. Kirby, anything you have left? We'll take us home.
Finish it off with this, unless you mentioned Weird Work.
I didn't yet, but I am getting it.
Okay, Weird Work #1 by Image Comics with a Michael Allred cover. Miniseries premiere. Legendary British artist Shaky Kane and writer Jordan Thomas are your guides through the corrupt, seedy streets of Stellar City and their new miniseries. The hard-boiled noir of LA Confidential mixes with the bright, alien-filled worlds of Futurama in this crime epic. Following months of gang shootings, Detective Obra Sauce is paired with a new partner on a triple homicide. But what were a billionaire's assistant, a hood-turned cult leader, and Sauce's former partner doing in that warehouse? You'll have to read it to find out. That's it for me.
Cool. And I'm guessing you should check out future episodes of Under the Cowl of MS if the previews haven't been out there already, but usually dives through a lot more stuff. The catalog has so many more pages. We can only scratch the surface with what we picked here. So check out those catalogs for May for products coming out in a different month, July. All right, let's jump over. This should be my final C2E2 recap. Going to be a pretty quick round here, but stopping by Dave Scheidt. He had these Mayor Good Boy pins there, so very limited edition. So I love those graphic novels, and I was excited to pick up these pins. And that the packaging is so adorable. I haven't committed to opening it up yet, but I'll find a nice home for that cool little package. Scoop McMahon, over a year ago or so, maybe about a year now. They talked about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness over on Franco's Catching Up with Franco show. And Scoot was taking some suggestions for what to draw. I threw it out there and said, hey, can you draw your Sammy the Samurai Squirrel, but draw her as the Sorceress Supreme, since they were talking Doctor Strange. and he whipped up this giant drawing really quick. He's a really fast drawer. And he's got Sammy right there in the middle in the Doctor Strange type Sorceress Supreme outfit. Threw in a bunch of other random stuff, and then he told me that next time he sees me at a show, that this was going to be mine, and he came through on that promise, and here it is. So that was a fun little sketch. I think I started off C2E2 recaps with Scoot with some other stuff, but now I'm going to close it out with Scoot as well. Monica Gallagher. This one, I was super excited to meet her. I put out a tweet a couple months ago where I said I want to see some Gilmore Girl comic books, and I named some Brian Fuller shows with like Wonder Falls and Dead Like Me and Pushing Daisies, where I'm like, I want continuing comic book series of these canceled programs. And she found my tweet through a thread, and I looked at her profile and I saw she's an artist, and I started following, went through the Etsy shop, bought some stuff through the Etsy, and then little did I know that in a couple weeks I would end up meeting her because she was at C2E2. So I picked up some things. She has a lot of fun stuff on her Etsy shop. I'll give that plug at the very end on what it is, but she has a lot of different little comic zines. She has Out in the Woods, which is basically kind of talking about the interest of horror movies and just kind of talking about the influence of watching horror movies throughout the year and how it's kind of shaped this person. I think most of the stuff is fairly autobiographical. But yeah, so these are just fun little zines. And then in the back, there's some just cool quotes from some characters. And it's basically like a little sketchbook. And she has this one quote that says, I make it through this and the next thing and the next thing. And maybe one day I turn around and realize I'm ready. That was a quote from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She drew the Buffy there at the end. Speaking of Buffy, one of the things that attracted me to her art was me buying this print. There's an episode where Willow is met with an alternate version of a vampire Willow, and there's a very classic line from that season 3 episode, The Wish, in which Willow is talking to the vampire version of herself, and they go, and I think I might be kind of gay. So it was a little, foreshadowing into that character, but it was an awesome moment in the Buffy history, and I just love seeing that art represented there. So Monica crushed it on that print. She also had another zine for Death is a Mean Girl. Awesome cover there, and this explores the idea of how anyone kind of approaches the idea of death, saying death comes in many ways, shapes, and sizes, and kind of how they kind of taunt people and how people kind of deal with the ever looming idea of death and how they can kind of cope with it based on however they approach it. And this is just a very interesting zine, really deep, really thoughtful piece. Definitely dug that. When she goes to cons, if she's in a specific state, she loves drawing cryptid characters, and so she was in Chicago, but nearby Wisconsin. So there was a Cryptids of Wisconsin, and it's basically she does these for a lot of different states, and basically has a whole guide there, going through some of these characters. You've got the Phantom Chickens, you've got a Kettle Moraine Goat Man, you've got Beast of Bray Road, you got some Haunchies, you got Gnomes of Field. I don't know, I haven't heard of that. But yeah, anyways, there's a bunch of different crazy things, and she just does this all specifically for wherever she's tabling, and that is always awesome to pick up that stuff there. I bought some digital rewards, which included a Not Safe for Work mature sketchbook. She's got a lot of awesome art in there. She has some Bigfoot little zines, digital zines as well. I also bought a Bigfoot sticker. So here's her interpretation of a Bigfoot character. Those are definitely very awesome. And you can find the website eatyourlipstick.com. Eatyourlipstick.com. That is Monica Gallagher. Highly suggest it. There's so much stuff on there, a lot of web comics, stuff that dates back over 10 years old. I can probably spend the next several months just devouring that stuff and not even finish it all. So eatyourlipstick.com, Monica Gallagher. It was awesome to befriend you online as we bonded over Gilmore Girls and such, and then just a few short weeks later to meet in person. And now the highlight of C2E2. While there was a ton of stuff that happened within this part, as well as the previous 3 parts over the last month or so. But Kevin Eastman, co-creator of the Ninja Turtles, was planned to be at C2E2. So I had an awesome photo op with him. It was the weekend that I debuted the Cartoonist by Night trailer, and I was wearing the shirt with the design by Troy Dungera. So there is a photo of me with Kevin Eastman of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I walked up to him. He saw the T-shirt and he just goes, "Cartoonist by Night," and he just got all like pumped up. And I was like, "Whoa, holy crap!" I'm like, I didn't even talk about it, but he dug the shirt there. So Troy, Kevin Eastman loves your shirt. All right. But I also had an autograph ticket with Mr. Eastman. I've been a Ninja Turtle fan for as long as I could open my eyes and see these, pizza eating turtles on the TV set. I would eventually, get into all the toys and all that stuff. And while I wouldn't get into the core of the comics until I was an adult, I looked at my original collection, and I've always had this issue with me. It was issue number 9 of the original series back in 1986. So I brought that to his table, told him how this copy's been with me ever since. It's pretty beat up. It's the one Ninja Turtle comic I've had that I would just read over and over again. And I got a remark on there. So he drew a Ninja Turtle head right there next to his autograph. And this issue may not have too much significance in the overall Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lore, but the idea that this comic has been with me ever since I was a Ninja Turtle fan as a young child. It was pretty awesome to have that meet and greet and to meet the co-creator of the Ninja Turtles. So Peter Laird, if you're listening to this right now, you should come to C2E2 some year, because I would also love your signature on this book. So that was going to be the end of my C2E2 2023 wrap up. A lot of fun stuff. I can't wait for more. These recaps went on for quite some time, which just means C2E2 2024 is just right around the corner in like 10 months. So, yep, awesome convention. Absolutely love it. I want to give the floor over to Katie because she has some adventures as well.
Yes. So as your wrap ups ended, mine will get started. We're going to go for several weeks talking about my time in New Zealand. I got to go on a Lord of the Rings themed tour. It was a 14-day tour that I have dreamed about since I was 10 years old. And it was everything I've ever wanted and more. I had the best time. It was just amazing. And I am incredibly privileged and very, very grateful that I had the opportunity to do this. And, certainly I'm very grateful to the love and support of all of our friends here at the club and at our D&D group. It does mean a lot. And I had some extra time in Auckland because, as if you're familiar with where New Zealand is, it's a very long flight to get to, and they run limited flights from Chicago. So I had some extra time in the city of Auckland, and I got to do some comic book shopping. I flew in Easter weekend, so we landed the Friday of Easter, and I went to a comic book store in Auckland and did some shopping for back issue treasures that Saturday. Saturday is comic book day, and I couldn't pass up that opportunity. I had a great time at the comic book store. It's called Arkham City Comics. I will post their link in the discussion board. And I looked through all of their back issue bins, found some really great comics. They actually had some really nice key issues. And I found, let's see, a bunch of cool Star Wars stuff. They had a couple Disney comics. And I actually had to put some things back because I'm like, this is the beginning of my trip, and I'm gonna have to haul this all up and down the country, on and off buses, on and off airplanes. So I had to be very judicious in what I bought. And the owner goes by the moniker Mr. J. Mr. J was there, and he was very kind to me. Made me feel super welcome. We talked about comics for like an hour. He was totally cool with me, like going through all the long boxes. And it was just an excellent experience. This hobby has, now, it's gone to other countries with me. It's gone throughout our own country with me. And everywhere I go, I meet awesome comic book fans who love this medium, who love interacting with other comic book fans. I visit cool stores with great staff owners that are so passionate about this hobby and about bringing everyone into it. It's really an incredible blessing and privilege. And if anyone's like, like, oh, the comics hobby is like really toxic, that does exist, but there's also parts of it that are so incredibly loving, and you can find comic book fans all around the world, no matter where you are. Go down to your local shop if you're interested and just check it out, give it a shot. I think you'll have a great time. So I did get to bring a few back issue treasures. I was super excited. I did a little happy dance in the store and got all like, yeah, awesome, I've been looking for these. So I collect Star Wars comics. You might know this. And back when Crimson Cowl was still a physical store, I picked up some Crimson Empire floppies. These are from 90s Dark Horse. It's a very popular run. I now have it in Epic Collections. You should read it if you haven't. And I was missing a few issues, so I was really happy to pick up Crimson Empire number 4 of 6. I said to Mr. J, I've been looking for this for like over 5 years, so I'm really glad to have found it. I also picked up a X-Wing Rogue Squadron comic. It's from In the Empire's Service arc. It's number 22 out of all the X-Wing comics. Again, this is another one that like I have read this series like 3 times. I own it in both floppies and Epic Collections. I'd put this pretty high on my comics reading list if you're interested in Star Wars comics. I love the X-Wing series. Fun fact, it's written by Michael Stackpole, who also wrote the first 4 X-Wing books. So if you like that, you'll love these comics. And I've enjoyed grabbing these floppies as I see them. So I was really glad to see this one because I didn't have it. In the Empire's Service arc is pretty cool. That's the introduction of Baron Soontir Fel. Him and then his son, Jagged Fel, actually play a big part in the EU. And I was just really happy about that because I do want to collect all the X-Wing floppies at some point. I also grabbed a Clone Wars Adventures book. This is based from the 2008 Clone Wars series. And I see ads for them quite frequently in like library books, as a matter of fact, because they were published by Dark Horse as well. So when you're reading the Dark Horse compendiums, you'll see ads for those. And I'm like, oh, I want to get that. But I have not encountered them in the wild around here. So it's just not been a high priority. But when I saw these, and they had like 5 of them, it was really hard to pick the one that I wanted. I was super pumped, and I grabbed the one with Ahsoka because I love that character. I have liked that character since the Clone Wars movie in 2014. So to have grown up with that character myself, because we were both like 13, 14 at that time, is really impactful. And I was really glad I was able to add that one. They had another cool one with Luke Skywalker, something really cool with Ayla Secura. They all looked really good. It was really hard to pick, but I went with Ahsoka. It was awesome. I enjoyed Arkham City Comics very much. It felt like home. Like, there were other people coming in and digging through the long boxes and talking comics and pull lists and, what do you think about this? And, oh, have you seen that? And it felt like our comic club. It had that level of love in there. Nothing could ever replace you guys, but when I go to a store that feels that comfortable, that friendly, that's a good sign to me. So lots of love and appreciation to Arkham City Comics and Mr. J. Appreciate that a lot. And then about 10 days later, I was in the capital city of Wellington. There's a bit of a story behind this, but I will probably go into that for another issue. But I was at a bookstore. They have a chain called Whitcoils or Whitcoals. It reminds me a lot of like 90s Walden Books. But anyway, that's like their national bookstore chain. And I had a little time. I had like an hour's time. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go like, check this out, see what they got, maybe like I was looking for like, do they have any like local, books, like local authors or local comics? And they did. I did pick up a novel by some New Zealand authors, enjoyed browsing the New Zealand nonfiction section. But what is relevant for this is I found a trade paperback of Avengers versus X-Men, but translated into Te Reo Maori, which is the language of the Maori people, who are the first human settlers of New Zealand. They're like the indigenous people of New Zealand. And I thought this was so cool because, first of all, like I didn't even know this existed. This is translated in partnership with one of the universities in New Zealand, Auckland University Press, it says. And I was like, if I don't buy this now, I will never see this again in my life because, you know, obviously Te Reo Maori is not widely spoken in the United States. And I'm like, this is just way too cool. And it's a piece that I am very thankful to have in my collection. No, I don't speak Te Reo Maori, but I would like to, you know, look at this and maybe learn some more words. And I love that they are trying to make comics available to everyone and give everyone an opportunity to, you know, enjoy a comic in their language. We primarily read English comics, and I'd say the comics industry, at least in America, skews towards English language comics, even though other languages are spoken here. So I just think that's really, really cool. Like I said, you know, I would probably never encounter this in the wild in any other place. And I love that they are working together to bring comics to more people and to give more Maori representation in the comics and nerd area. One of our tour guides was half Maori, and he's like, yeah, that is awesome, because he's also into, like, you know, nerd stuff and comics and whatever. And I was telling him I found this book and he thought that was really cool and he was really excited about it. I do want to be respectful and culturally sensitive, and I am fangirling over this with nothing but the utmost respect and enjoyment, and I do hope to do right by this. Obviously, I am a white lady who is not at all of any Maori relation, but I am very thankful to have had the opportunity to buy this and to learn about the Maori language and then use it as a springboard to learn more about the Maori history. So we've had a pretty long episode today, but I wanted to do the back issue treasures that I found while I was in New Zealand. And they were pretty cool. I did really enjoy it, and I can't wait to tell you more about the country and maybe bring a slideshow of some pictures.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to see the pictures of that Avengers X-Men thing. That
Oh,
sounds
for
awesome.
sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it has been an extra sized, awesome episode. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good conversation. But we will wrap it up. This will be a quick version of the plugs. All of the plugs are in the credits as well, so you can get all that information. CrimsonCowl.com. Go there for information on the podcast as well as original web comics. Crimson Cowl Comic Club at yahoo.com if you want to submit any future letters page questions or comments. Crimson Cowl Comic Club on YouTube. This is how you're watching it. Hit subscribe and like. If you're listening to the audio version, Crimson Cowl Comic Club on iTunes, maybe give this a shot on YouTube as well so you can see some of the show and tell. And also on the YouTube page, Hellboy Book Club series. We have 2 episodes out now, Seed of Destruction and Wake the Devil. The Crimson Cowl, all one word on Instagram. Kirby has a spin-off podcast under the Call of MS. Subscribe wherever you get your audio podcast as well as video for lots of awesome content over there. I have some hobby artist accounts, Anthony Latch, LAATSCH on Facebook and Instagram. I also host Cartoonist by Night on YouTube. Check out many episodes. We got 2 up there now. We got several banked. It's a fun little drawing show with Troy Dungara, Matt Fife, and Matt Rogers. And then we have some upcoming guests on this very show. Desmond Reed from the Cola Pop Creamies will be on within maybe a month or so. We will have Matt Fife and Matt Rogers on to talk about the brand new Happy Astronaut #1 from Keenspot. Brian Lynch, Harold and his Hot Wing of Justice. We talked to him last week. That was an awesome episode. He gave us much praise. He drew some fun stuff with Harold and the Crimson Cowl. So check out the Hot Wing of Justice on Instagram and all the social media to see some of that stuff. That was super fun to have Brian on. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun, but that is going to do it for this episode. This whole time, I've been a ninja-loving bastard.
I've been on the edge of the Warlock verse.
I've been eating corn dogs with God.
You're muted.
I'm just subjected to the terrors.
I've been pondering why I've never seen a microwave commercial.
To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.
Hi, everybody. I'm Troy.
I'm Matt Rogers.
I'm Matt Fife.
And I'm Anthony Latch, and we are Cartoonist by night.
We all met online thanks to our shared interest in comics and cartooning.
On our show, we hang out to draw and discuss whatever pop culture topics are on our minds.
We are fully aware that a show like this has never existed before, and we hope we live up to the hype.
So join us at our website, YouTube, and other social media platforms and watch us cartoon by night. The actual show isn't going to be scripted like this was. Oh.